Hi, friend. How are you? This newsletter that I'm publishing recently is going a little bit into my reflection of this new boom that we're seeing about artificial intelligence and how it correlates to just how we operate and how we work with one another. And there's just so much that's happened over the past few months. We see a lot of reports coming out with artificial intelligence not being equitable, inclusive of different perspectives, BIPOC folks, queer folks, women. But we're also seeing some AI ethicists and organizations asking our government, FTC, to put a hold on development of GPT and future iterations of it. And what worries me is that, especially with all these signs starting to rear itself, if we are not careful and considerate of what we're actually building, we may cause some irreparable harm for the future of our humanity. We are seeing a lot of things starting to point to maybe societal and also ecological issues that might come up as a part of these technologies being unchecked. And so a few key reflections. The first lesson that's coming up is control and servitude. We have these platforms acting almost as indentured servants to us, making sure that whatever we ask for it, whenever we ask for it, it is never not giving us an answer, right? And then when it's giving us an answer that we don't like, we're like, bad, bad, bad. And this is really, I think, a reflection of something a lot deeper within our society, which is this normalization of indentured servitude and historical slavery, and that we have really not escaped it and moved beyond it, especially as we think about creating a healthy symbiotic relationship with these platforms and these technologies. We haven't really figured out how we're going to do this with other humans, right? But now we're simply recreating robots, artificial intelligence, and programs and platforms to take its place. And the way we anthropomorphize some of these platforms and products, they're named and talk like women, and also a lot of these characteristics and these archetypes of this butler were really reinforcing a lot of systemic and historical biases within the way that we're even constructing these products and platforms. Ultimately, if we want to shift our society to a new future that is different, that is equitable for all, I think we really have to let go of these historical contexts and really think about and examine how are we breaking away from this command and response model. The next point I have is this historical and societal obsession with extraction. And we've seen it, right, happening with natural resources, labor. We also see this happening with artificial intelligence, where we're taking out the whole concept of what is a human and how we interact with other humans away from the whole model. We're trying to save a lot of money in the process, but I think we're not figuring out what we're doing with humans ultimately in the long run. I have a few statistics here. About 6%, 50 million people of the world are unemployed, and about 50%, 4 billion people around the world live in extreme poverty. And AI is projected to displace another 300 million people from jobs. Especially as we talk about the responsibility that we have with our larger community and those around us, don't we have some sort of responsibility to take care of others, right? Financially, giving them jobs and giving them financial freedom to be able to decide what they want to do with their lives. And at the end of the day, if we're not going to do that, and if our technologies are not going to do that, then what's ultimately going to happen to these people? And as a society, if we're not starting to think about and address this, I think we are going to be in a bit of a pickle. We have to figure out what we do with these other humans. And also, there are some other concerns around ecological issues and running AI at mass scale has, a few reports estimate, about 250,000 pounds of carbon dioxide emissions, and also emissions comparable to that of the aviation industry. I think if we zoom out further as we talk about the symbiotic and sustainable relationship with our society and also with our ecology, I think we really have to take a step back and re-examine some of the things that we're creating. Are the images we're creating worth it? Are the jobs we're displacing ultimately worth it? For what reason? What is the future that we want? And ultimately, I think we have to ensure that we're not growing at this cancerous hypergrowth state in which we have repercussions that we can't walk back from. And lastly, the thing that's been actually bothering me the most with a lot of the generative AI and now video generation is really this concept of deception. And oftentimes when I'm browsing through Twitter, I see this litmus test asking other folks, hey, can you tell if this is AI generated or not? And the quality of the production of what's coming out of either Midjourney, DALL-E, or these other platforms is the way in which it can deceive us as individuals, as a community. And the funny thing is that all these platforms have scraped content, art, music that's ultimately been done by other humans. And so I find it quite ironic and quite hilarious that we're trying to deceive everyone else on the back of the labor of other humans. Is it really deception, or are we being deceived ourselves? Lately, we're seeing a ton of lawsuits coming out around copyright infringement, but also just infringing on the right of creators and taking their content without permission, illegally, as a part of what's feeding these generative AI platforms. And especially as we talk about where we want to go in the future, I think ethically we should be indicating and labeling generative AI content. If we want to take a full step back, this can potentially provide us an opportunity to create a whole nother vertical of either stock content, imagery, or just content in general that we can use that sits alongside human generated content. And this begs the question, why are we so obsessed with one versus another, one overtaking the other, and this obsession with somehow this generative AI content is somehow going to be all the type of content that we're creating? I think ultimately and ethically in the future, we can totally have two that sit side by side symbiotically, but we really have to clearly delineate and distinguish what is generative AI content that's being developed and label it as such. We have to be honest with one another, and our whole purpose should not be how well we're able to deceive each other. That's not very sustainable. And I think ultimately, if all these platforms are leveraging content and data that's by the community, I think the community should also get to decide what they do with their data, but more importantly, what they do with these platforms. If they want to be included or excluded from the narrative, or they want it to be shaping up in a way that is conducive for other creators. I think the people and the data that is being used should have a say in where these platforms go. And so those are some quick thoughts of just what's coming up for me, especially as I think about artificial intelligence and where our communities are headed. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you're thinking and if these resonate with you. And as always, I write all these thoughts as a part of my newsletter, mindfulmoments.substack.com. Feel free to subscribe, receive these thoughts in your inbox on the regular, and until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye.